You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 20th of September 2013. Short-staffed hospitals forced to recruit nurses from overseas after axing 5,000 jobs. Privatisation of probation service will put public at risk. Give up work, you'll be better off on benefits. What council officer told single mother with a part-time job? Scotland Yard to downgrade police entry tests to allow for ethnic minorities. Greek government hints at Golden Dawn ban. Jihadists threaten Catalonia, Spain over burqa ban. Kenya poachers to be named and shamed online. Indian terror suspect escapes from Mumbai court. Thought for the day, fracking or just fracking awful? And finally, a joke for the weekend. UK News. Short-staffed hospitals forced to recruit nurses from overseas after axing 5,000 jobs. A quarter of hospitals are being forced to recruit nurses from overseas after being left short-staffed from job cuts it's emerged. Approximately 5,000 posts have been axed in the last 3 years, leaving many trusts struggling to fill staffing gaps. Under a Freedom of Information request, it emerged that 37 trusts out of 172 have sent managers to a recruitment event abroad. A further 12 admitted they were planning to hire from overseas. Figures obtained by the Times show. The Chief Executive of the Royal College of Nursing condemned NHS trust bosses for their short-sightedness in firing staff to make short-term savings. It comes after analysis by King's College London found almost half of hospital wards have less than one nurse per 8 patients. Committee Chairman Stephen Dorrell MP said, "It's the whole issue in the health service about recognising good practice." World at 8 says, "It's not just hospitals firing nurses, it is the government and nursing colleges who have cut training placements by 25% since 2009. Almost 200,000 nursing hopefuls applied for less than 18,000 training spots in 2013, and we have to bring in foreign nurses to meet the shortage. It is in fact legitimised job genocide against our own people. Shame." Privatisation of probation service will put public at risk. Chris Grayling, the Justice Secretary, signalled his determination to push ahead with the £800 million privatisation of the bulk of the National Probation Service, which traces its roots back to 1907. He will publish advertisements Thursday inviting bids to take over around 3/4 of the service's current workload. Under the moves, the 35 existing regional probation trusts will be replaced by 21 government companies which will tender out the work of supervising more than 200,000 offenders each year considered to present low or medium risk. Those regarded as high risk will continue to be monitored by a slimmed-down National Probation Service. Potential bidders include such firms as G4S and Serco, which are both being investigated over alleged fraud in Ministry of Justice contracts. Probation staff demonstrated against the moves across England and Wales Thursday in action being jointly organised by the National Association of Probation Officers, NAPO, Unison and the GMB. Give up work, you'll be better off on benefits. What council officer told single mother with a part-time job? Chelsea Press, 23, told she was £54 a week worse off by working part-time. Basildon District Council said she would have an additional £2,850 a year. Miss Press gets by on £650 wages, £81.24 child benefit and £454 working tax credits and child tax credits each month. She often waits for Lacey to finish food before she knows if she can eat. She refuses to quit and doesn't want to set a bad example for her daughter. As an unemployed person, she would not have to pay rent or council tax and would be £238 a month better off. However, her daughter Lacey knows her mother works and helps old people. Miss Press just hopes her daughter is proud of her, and in her own words, Miss Press says, "I want to set her a good example and show her that you don't just sit at home expecting everything to be given to you on a plate." This presenter says, "When I was bringing up my children alone, I went through a period of not being able to work and appealed to the local council for temporary help. I was told then, in the late 80s, that I should not pay my mortgage and get thrown out, not try for any jobs, and then I would get a council house locally and all the benefits. Otherwise there was nothing they could do for me. Clearly this thinking has not changed. Scotland Yard to downgrade police entry tests to allow for ethnic minorities. Scotland Yard wants to downgrade the importance of a written English test at police recruitment centres to make it easier for candidates from ethnic minorities to join the Met. Bosses believe people who do not have English as their first language are being discriminated against under current assessment rules. They have recommended the weighting placed on the written communications section of the Metropolitan Police's tough entrance exam is lowered. World at 8 states. This is the worst example of racism. I know for a fact that the police are not recruiting British men for a British institution, so they're having to dumb down the entry levels to attract yet more ethnics. It is a national disgrace. European news. Greek government hints at Golden Dawn ban. The Greek government has hinted that it will seek to ban Golden Dawn after the far-right party was linked to the murder of a leading left-wing musician in Athens. As violence erupted on the streets and demonstrators protested after the fatal stabbing of Pavlos Fyssas, a prominent anti-fascist, the Public Order Minister Nikos Dendias cancelled a trip abroad, saying the government would table emergency legislation that would seek to outlaw the group. Amid renewed political tensions between the extreme left and right, the new law would re-evaluate what constituted a criminal gang. He said, "Neither the state will tolerate nor society accept acts and practices that undermine the legal system," the minister told reporters, adding that the attack showed in the clearest way the party's intentions. Earlier in the day, police raided Golden Dawn offices across the country, with media reporting running street battles outside branches in Crete, Thessaloniki and Patras. World at 8 comments. Do the authorities know for sure that a Golden Dawn member did this killing? Or is it rather like Syria? You know that sarin gas was used, just as you know this guy is dead, but the whole point is at whose hands did he die and who used the sarin? Are people dense or what? Governments don't make a fuss when a so-called right-winger is stabbed to death in public, do they? Jihadists threaten Catalonia, Spain over burqa ban. A jihadist group affiliated with Al-Qaeda has threatened to carry out terrorist attacks in Catalonia, an autonomous region in the northeastern Spain that is home to the largest concentration of radical Islamists in Europe. The threats were issued by a group called Africa Muslima in response to efforts by Catalonian lawmakers to increase surveillance of radical Salafists seeking to impose Islamic Sharia law in Spain and other parts of Europe. Many of the Muslims living in Catalonia are shiftless single males who are unemployed and susceptible to jihadist recruitment, according to diplomatic cables obtained by WikiLeaks and published by the Madrid-based El País newspaper. Spanish authorities are especially concerned about the threat posed by Salafism, a radical strain of Islam that seeks to re-establish an Islamic empire, caliphate, across the Middle East, North Africa and Spain, which Salafists view as a Muslim state that must be reconquered for Islam. We need Ferdinand and Isabella back in Spain, or Franco. There is no From the Belly of the Beast today, as Nick Griffin is travelling. World news. Kenya poachers to be named and shamed online. About 100 elephants are killed each year in Kenya. A website to name and shame poachers in Kenya, poachersexposed.com, has been launched by wildlife campaigners. Those charged or convicted of links to poaching will be listed, Kenyans United Against Poaching, KUAPO, said. This is not just about the poacher who is shooting the bullet, but the middleman and the average Joe caught trafficking rhino horn or ivory, KUAPO's Salisha Chandra told the BBC. It is also hoped that data will reveal trends to help fight poaching. Meanwhile, a similar project to attract corruption in Mali has been launched by the French government, which has given more than €100,000, that's equivalent to £84,200, in aid to the West African country. World at 8 states. I think you all know exactly what I would do with these vile men, and it wouldn't be too quick either. Indian terror suspect escapes from Mumbai court. An Indian terror suspect accused of involvement in deadly bomb attacks 5 years ago escaped from a court in Mumbai on Friday, sparking a massive manhunt, police said. Afzal Usmani, allegedly a member of a homegrown Islamic group known as the Indian Mujahideen, was appearing in court to hear prosecution charges against him, according to local media reports. He has escaped. The police, everybody is looking for him, Mumbai's anti-terror squad chief Rakesh Maria told AFP. Usmani was arrested in 2008 for his alleged involvement earlier that year in serial blasts in western Gujarat state which killed 56 people. He's accused of being part of another attempted bombing in the same state, reports said. It was not immediately clear how Usmani escaped amidst heavy police security at the court. Thought for the day: fracking or just fracking awful? The subject of fracking is rearing its ugly head yet again and bringing discord to what should be a fairly straightforward thing. But is it? As usual, the two sides are vehemently opposed to listening to each other's side of the argument, and the telling factor is that the United States is almost self-contained for its energy needs, mainly due to fracking. But as usual, there are two sides to every tale, and we have to take into account that the shale beds in the States are generally much nearer to the surface than in the UK, and a factor that has not hit the media is that to do what the Americans have done, even in a lesser quantity, would take hundreds of digs and sites, not just an occasional one in every region. Even getting the 10% energy that would keep us going for around 40 years would take many more digs than just a couple, in fact hundreds. The whole of our countryside, already under threat from overbuilding, new railways and new airports, would be even more decimated. Now, I'm a tree hugger. To me, trees make the land. I'm a tree person, I'm afraid. But this doesn't blind me to the fact that we in the Western world need to find an alternative source of energy to that of oil, and we need to find it quickly. Cold fusion is a passion of mine. I don't have the brains to know much about it or do anything about it. But if I had large amounts of money, this is what I would fund: nationalism and cold fusion. I know that nuclear power plants are a horrible necessity because our civilisations have become totally dependent on energy of one form or another, and indeed in Europe especially, we are becoming so overcrowded with immigrants and their birth rates, we are in a sense funding the third world as well. It needs pointing out that all governments are frantically backing practically any new, potentially cheaper sources of energy for their new people, not us. Our birth rates are diminishing, so it's obvious our governments and the rest of Europe are worried about future immigrant needs, and not yours. So you might say, why should we have our countryside destroyed just to keep immigrants warm? And you would have a point. It may not be so cut and dried, but it is the truth in a nutshell. Our government is only too happy to fund anything that will bring energy prices down, as it is a good election ploy for a start. Believe me, despite the future designated use of new energy sources, I for one would welcome a cheaper form of energy, especially for our elderly and infirm, and to help lift the yoke of OPEC from our shoulders, but the arguments against fracking in the UK are becoming noisier and more understandable. What goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, and the same applies to fracking. The idea is a simple one, but it all depends on the depth of the rock to get to the shale beds underneath. This is the main fact which remains solid. The more depth you have to drill, the more earth is displaced, and other gases like methane can be allowed into the shale beds or beyond. Fracking sites also do not handle localised flooding very well. Now, this is happening in the States. There are many cases of a displacement of tanks on the fracking sites which have suffered with the floods in Colorado, and tons of oil are being dispersed into the water and grazing lands of cattle. The US media is very quiet about this, and the main information has been from social networking sites. I will read a few samples to you now. I see you've noticed the underwater wells in Weld County, Colorado. Amazing, we've emailed the Denver TV stations, other media and state and local politicians. We've sent pictures that our members have taken. It's like the media and politicians have been told not to say anything about it. There's been no mention of the gas wells on the Denver newscasts either late last night or this evening, although all stations have had extensive and extended flood coverage. You can see underwater wells in the background of some of the newscast videos, and yet the reporters say absolutely nothing. Here's a picture of one of our members took yesterday in Weld County, Colorado. We've got tons more on our website, check them out. The tanks are tipping and in some cases have fallen over. They have to be leaking toxins into the flood waters. There have to be hundreds if not thousands of underwater well pads in Weld County as a result of the flooding. Please publicise this in Texas since our media people and politicians have gone silent. People living in Weld County contacted me a few minutes ago and they are now receiving many press calls about the underwater leaking oil and gas facilities. Lafayette-based anti-fracking activist Cliff Wellming said he spent 2 days zigzagging across Weld and Boulder counties documenting flooded drilling sites, mostly along the drainage way of the St. Vrain River. He observed hundreds of wells that were inundated. He also saw many condensate tanks that hold waste material from fracking at odd angles or even overturned. It's clear that the density of the oil and gas activity there did not respect where the water would go, Wilming said. What we immediately need to know is what is leaking, and we need a full, detailed report of what that is. This is washing across agricultural land and into the waterways. Now we have to discuss what type of exposure the human population is going to have to suffer through. A spokesman for the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission said the agency is aware of a potential for contamination from flooded drilling sites, but there is simply no way to get to those sites while flooding is ongoing and while resources are concentrating on saving lives. Now you will know that there are hundreds of fracking sites in the US, and that is the only way this works. The more wells and the more drilling that is undertaken, the more plentiful the results of so-called cheaper energy. Only if we listen to what is happening in the US can we gauge that it isn't quite so free as is advertised. You cannot say in all honesty that the less desirable side effects both on man and beast won't happen here, as our shale beds are deeper and our countryside cannot accommodate hundreds of wells. Those that are in place will have to go deeper than in the States, and no one, let alone our government or privately funded corporate scientists, are able in all truth to look into the future. Just into a future of large financial kickbacks and potential freedom from international rigging of oil prices and the domination of black gold. Apart from the fact that no one really knows what effect will be on the environment from fracking long term, there is always the problem in this country of just too little space to operate sufficient sites to make it worthwhile. For many years our farming industry has been pushed further and further into concentrated battery farms for cattle to accommodate more building, yet at the same time trying to provide more food for more people at more affordable prices. And I personally don't think that our farming industries can get much smaller without having a very serious impact on both the animals, their husbandry and the product. Even now we're feeding cattle non-vegetarian foodstuffs, which is, in another word, the slurry off the slaughterhouse floor. And because of this the poor beasts are being shot full of antibiotics and God knows what, all to produce hopefully more meat for a growing population. Just imagine the impact of a horde of fracking sites surrounding various farms as well, and the already ghastly lives of our cattle will be even worse, as even the so-called fracking experts cannot predict the effect of sustained drilling on an environment that hasn't been open to this sort of large-scale invasion of drill sites before. Our party is not against progress or the feeding of the 5,000 of preferably our own tribes, but when something is desperately needed, it is only too human to grasp the first straw handed to them without really thinking about it and dismissing adverse stories as bunkum and Luddite. Personally, I think it looks good on paper. In fact, it looks marvellous on paper, and if you think about it, it reads like a very few drilling sites are needed for the most return, when in fact it is the reverse. One drilling site may prove fruitful for a while, but then the need will increase and so will the drilling sites, until our previously green and pleasant land and already fragile ecosystem will be dominated by large drilling sites which are not in themselves vast, but the sheer number of them will be just that, vast. Fossil fuels are just that, fossils holding up something else, and we know to our cost of the many collapses and falls during the times of the coal mines. In fact, why not open the coal mines again? All the new machinery from the 80s is down there, and there must be many seams of coal that have not run out or the mine flooded. Why don't we stick to what we know for a time and just see how fracking works in other countries? But bear in mind all countries have a different network of rock and different depths, and to be honest, different needs. And finally, a Friday joke. The Mayor of London was very worried about the plague of pigeons in the city. He couldn't remove the pigeons from the city. All of London was full of pigeon poop. The good Londoner people couldn't walk on the pavements nor drive on the roads. It was costing a fortune to keep the streets and pavements clean. One day a man came to the town hall and offered the mayor a proposition. I can rid your beautiful city of its plague of pigeons without any cost to the city. But you must promise me not to ask me any questions. Or, if you can pay me £1 million, you can ask just one question. The mayor considered the offer and accepted the free proposition. The next day the man climbed to the top of Nelson's column, opened his coat and released a blue pigeon. The blue pigeon circled in the air and flew up into the clear blue London sky. All the pigeons in London saw the blue pigeon and gathered behind the bird. The London pigeon soon followed the blue pigeon as it flew eastwards out of the city. The next day the blue pigeon returned alone to the top of Nelson's column. The mayor was very impressed. He felt the man and his blue pigeon had performed a wonderful service to London by getting rid of the pigeons. Even though the man with the blue pigeon had charged nothing, the mayor presented him with a cheque for £1 million and told the man that indeed he did have a question to ask, and even though they had agreed to no fee, he decided to pay £1 million just to ask one question. The man accepted the money and told the mayor to ask his one question. The mayor asked, "Do you have a blue Muslim?" And this presenter makes no apologies to any Muslim in the UK whatsoever. Get a sense of humour, my friends, get a sense of humour. You've been listening to The World at 8. I'm Lynn Mozar and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy and a very safe weekend.